The ideas that are being shared on our podcast today are not to be construed as financial advice.
We are not financial planners,
nor financial advisors. We are only giving you some tips, tricks, and ideas that have worked for us in the past and present.
So the thoughts that we're sharing here just need to be construed as things that have worked for us and solely for that purpose.
Please seek financial advice before implementing any of the ideas that we are about to share with you. And now, on to our podcast. Welcome to the 2 Acre Homestead Podcast. We're your host, Lisa.
And Kevin.
And on today's episode, we're talking about how to run your homestead like a business. We are taking a deep dive into the financial world of a homestead. Welcome to the 2 Acre Homestead. Come along with us on our journey from a small suburban homestead lifestyle
to our new lifestyle, homesteading in the rural countryside of southern Arizona.
We'll share with you our tips, tricks, successes, and failures.
From both our past suburban lifestyle to our new rural lifestyle, all
on the 2 Acre Homestead.
Welcome back. Well, it's been an interesting season, and this episode is interesting because we've had listeners write in and request us to go deeper into a subject that we've talked about, which relates to finances. So we're calling this Run Your Homestead Like a Business.
Exactly.
Of course, before we get into that, we always like to ask this question. What's new in your neck of the woods?
Oh my goodness. I think it's everything. This is fall, and so all hands on deck. We just, Monday, as of the recording of this, we just pulled everything that's going to freeze, everything out of our gardens. So we took out all of the tomatoes, zucchini, squash, pumpkins. We took everything out and still am trying to preserve what little is left. And then we're getting ready for meat season here on our homestead. So
right. I was going to say regarding the gardens, bags and bags and bags and bags of tomatoes.
Yes.
Awesome.
It would have been just a fantastic tomato harvest, but the frost was coming too quick. And as of last night, it killed everything. So
got it just in time.
Yep.
Is there more salsa in my future? Spaghetti sauce? What are we doing there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes to it all.
Awesome. Because, I've already gone through 4 jars of salsa.
I know. Yeah. It just, we really go through it all. But then we're also getting ready for meat season too. So
we are.
We don't grow our own beef here on our homestead, but so we order it from a local farm who butchers his own meat on farm. So
grass-fed, grass-finished.
Exactly. So we just put half a cow into our freezer. So that's exciting. And then it's actually tomorrow we start rabbit season officially.
Yep. And then we're going to be culling some chickens and turkeys as well.
Yes, it's the chicken turkey culling. We're going to be reducing our chickens. I think we've settled on, we're getting rid of our, not the barred rocks, but the
speckled Sussex.
The speckled Sussex,
And then we have some older Leghorn. Those are good producers, but they're what? This is
I think they're 4, almost 5 years old now.
Yeah. So
it's time. Past time.
They've done their duty.
But, I really want to put a plug in. If you're interested in getting into chickens, you're new to this homesteading thing. Out of all of the breeds that we've had, and please keep in mind, we are in a warmer climate. in comparison to maybe like Minnesota or other places. Where we are here in Arizona, it does snow, but generally speaking, it's warmer. So just keep this in mind. But if you're interested in getting into chickens, I highly recommend for a beginner to really get the white leghorns. Yes, they lay white eggs, but those little girls are producers. I mean, they just nonstop production. It's nice to have the olive eggs and all of these other pretty colors. Believe you me, it's absolutely gorgeous. But when you're trying to get things going, I often recommend the leghorns because leghorns and Rhode Island Reds, because they just produce no muss, no fuss. They're easy to keep. They don't get sick very often. They're just an easy bird.
Yeah, in general, I agree. It's interesting. I think we've talked about this. It's interesting to have the different colored eggs because basically in the store it's all pretty much just sprayed on white. It seems like it's just but producers first, right? And dual purpose first. Dual purpose is great too because for us we call for meat as well. So
that's what we're doing with our turkeys.
Yeah. And as we mentioned before, we'll when the time is right, we'll incubate. We'll look at incubating because we do have an incubator. So that way we don't rely on getting more chickens from the hatchery and we can continue to produce, new blood and ramp up the egg production as well.
Absolutely. What's new in your neck of the woods? Done
with the barn.
Yay!
Taking a break from that. Yeah. So basically this past week, put the dual barn, the top half, bottom half that swings open. So we have 2 goats in that second barn now. I call it a barn. It's a lean-to, but it's still a barn. But it's nice. So that's a relief. But I'm going to take a break from doing some of that kind of stuff right now.
Yeah.
So
winter's coming too. Yeah.
Don't want to be out there constructing stuff right now.
No, because they're saying it's going to be a very wet winter here.
Yeah, and this morning, did we have a low? I think it was around low 40s this morning. What was it? Or is it in the 30s?
No, it was 37 degrees.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes I go by what I get on my phone, but then I realize, I need to subtract a few degrees.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
but it's coming.
That's what the National Weather Service was saying. So subtract a few degrees. And so it was probably more like 34, 35 degrees here.
Yep.
So it was good.
So instead of it's fall, y'all, it's cold, y'all. So let's get into topic. We're talking about how to run your homestead like a business. So one thing we mentioned that was it last week when we talked about this, about finances, is we use that word assets. So let's start with that. Tell us a little bit about assets. What are they?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you looking to build a homestead from the ground up? Or maybe you're looking to build an off-grid dream home, a vacation home, or maybe just a piece of land to call your own. Visit yourcheapland.com to buy rural land in the wide open spaces of southwestern United States. When you visit yourcheapland.com, they're here to help you, and with their help, you can do this. You can take your dream of owning land and make it a reality. Most down payments are only $294, including the document fee. Remember, everyone qualifies for financing at yourcheapland.com. Head on over to yourcheapland.com and start making those dreams come true. And now, back to our podcast. Basically, there's a textbook definition for what an asset is. And basically, an asset is anything that's going to generate cash flow, anything that's going to create income or wealth, a positive cash flow in your business, homestead, whatever it is that you're talking about. And in this case, we're talking about a homestead. So, and that can be anything from a job, we're going to get into the weeds on this, but anything that creates income is an asset. But also, anything that has value is an asset as well. So, for example, let's just say, I'm just throwing numbers out here. This is nothing exact, but let's just say you have three gold coins. They're minted, they're US Mint coins, and they're gold. Those gold coins aren't going to generate you necessarily income, but they are an asset because they have value. You can trade those coins in for something, for cash. So they have value to them. So when we talk about assets, there's a lot of things on a homestead that can be considered an asset. And then there's liabilities, which is the exact opposite. Do you want to talk about what a liability is?
So, yeah, liabilities are something you owe. It's an obligation between one party and another. It's not yet completed or paid for. So, that being said, I have a question for you because this is something that maybe is debated. Is a house an asset or a liability?
I am going to say, and I know you feel the same way as well, but for the 2-acre homestead, our stance is that your house, even if you own it outright, is a liability. And the reason we say it's a liability is, I shouldn't say in an absolute it's a liability, because it's not. It really depends. It is mostly a liability, even if you own it outright. Why? Because there are things that you're always going to have to do to improve, fix, modify. You're going to be spending money on your house. So it's a liability because it's not generating you cash. Now, when you go to sell your home now, if you can sell it for more than what you owe on it, now all of a sudden your home has become an asset because you are tapping into and I hate to use the word equity because it's really not. It just depends on how you feel, but for the lack of better term, we'll call it equity. You're tapping into the equity of your home. So now your home has become an asset because you're able to generate positive cash flow from said home.
And that's in the case where you bought it for just to pull numbers out of a hat here. You bought it for $10,000, and then you turn around years later and you sell it for $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not always the case. What goes up must come down. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. The market goes down or whatnot, right? So in that case, maybe it wouldn't be an asset.
Right.
Now, what about in the case of somebody who has land, cattle, they're growing, maybe they have a CSA set up? What do you say then? Is it an asset or a liability?
It all depends, and that's what we're going to get into today. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about liabilities. On a homestead, and when we talk about a homestead, we're talking about a homestead. It can be in the suburbs. These principles can apply to a homestead in the suburbs, but really we're gearing this more towards those that have a little bit more land. Your liabilities really can be things like your mortgage. Of course, we just talked about your house in general is a liability because it's not generating cash for you on its own. You're paying on it. Your mortgage is a liability. Why? Because you owe. Your taxes for said property is a liability. Because
You're going to
that's
have repairs,
yes,
roof, things that break down.
Animals on your property will be initially they're a liability. And that might shock you to think about that. But really, when you have a homestead, your animals are a liability. Because if you're depending on those animals to produce, let's just say you have a cow, you have a dairy cow, you're relying on that animal to produce milk for you, and that animal gets sick. Now you've got to take it to the vet. Well, guess what? Now you've got to pay the vet bill. You got to feed the animal. Now you've got a hay bill. So you can see where the cash flow, your flow of cash, is now going out instead of in. So your animals are actually a liability. Your feed bill, your utilities, anything that you need to spend money on to keep your homestead going is a liability. So how do you counterbalance your liabilities with your assets? So do you want to get into that?
Okay, so let's talk about how then on your homestead do you make assets out of what you have. So let's start with animals. Let's say, for example, like we have goats, we have a herd of goats. Let's say that's your case. You have a number of does. You've decided how much milk, for example, that you want to produce for your family to drink, to make butter, to make ice cream and whatnot. But what if you want to turn that into an asset? So you might think about getting more does so that you could produce more to resell, sell the milk, create products out of that milk. For example, produce goat milk soap, for example, and then resell that. Then that way your animals become an asset. So now you're making money. Those goats are generating income that you can then use to pay for, to put against the liabilities that you have. So in an ideal situation, that's going to help reduce your liabilities overall. And imagine if you could break even by letting those assets work for you.
Another example, if I can just throw this in here, is like for the gardens, for example. I know we belong to a buying club here in our local area. And next year, I was asked if I could provide the buying club with plant starts for the gardening season. And so I'm going to be selling my plant starts, and that will provide a counterbalance to my gardening needs, whatever they will be. I think I'm pretty good this year, but and the year to come. But that'll provide a counterbalance to whatever is needed in the gardens. So basically, you want your homestead to pay for itself, is basically what you're after.
And another one related to gardening could also be saving as much as you can of the food scraps that you have. Use those. Use grass clippings in the fall, the brown matter, the leaves that fall, etc., and compost.
Exactly.
Learn how to compost. Local coffee shops, sometimes they save their coffee grounds. They have a big trash bag full. You can just grab it for free. That helps provide nitrogen for that process. Go to a local school. Say, hey, what do you do with all those grass clippings? So sometimes, depending on your situation, maybe green matter is harder to get. In other cases, maybe brown matter is harder to get. But that way, instead of going to those big box stores and spending, several dollars per bag to get your compost and those things, you're generating it yourself.
Right.
So that becomes, those food scraps and all those things become an asset. It's generating income for you.
And the asset, the value, because remember we said assets can also be something that's valuable. So the value of being able to recycle on your own homestead is that you are now taking what would normally go, in the trash, and you're converting that into valuable soil that will be able to produce food. And that took little to no input from you. All you needed to do was dump it into the right place, turn it, and make sure there's water. And there you go. You've got a valuable asset to your homestead, to your property.
So thinking along the lines of other ways that you can use what you have, what you're producing, to make those things assets, is think about farmers markets. How could you, I guess, what's the word, capitalize on farmers markets? Are there ways that you could take extra of what you produce with the mindset of selling them, reselling them at a farmer's market? So, of course, that could be grow, enough extra to generate income. You mentioned plant starts. You could grow produce to resell at farmers markets.
Or here's something else that you can do is start your own CSA. What is that? A consumer supported agriculture is what it stands for. So you can say, you know what, I'm selling shares of my gardens, and do your own research on this. But, you can say, hey, you can buy boxes of produce from me directly. I will harvest it, box it, ship it out to you. And, you can have a regular customer base doing something as simple as that.
And along with that, make it a subscription model.
Exactly.
Right. A lot of companies do that with different things. So why? So they can have a constant flow of income. So imagine you do that for 4 months in a row, however often that is, bi-weekly or whatnot, whatever product it is, a box of produce. Some businesses have done it where you get a box of produce, and maybe it varies depending on as the season goes and for that certain period of time. But the customer pays a certain amount per box or per month, and then that's constant cash flow. So
exactly,
that's a good way to think about it when it comes to that.
And then, of course, if you're working outside of the home, that's obviously an asset. But, basically what we're talking about here is you want to create a balance within your home. Not just within your home, but how your home is run. You want to be able to make your homestead as productive as you possibly can. Because at the end of the day, if you're just homesteading and not interacting with other people within your community, it can actually be very draining for you financially because there's so many outside inputs. And really what we're trying to guide and point you to the direction of is reducing those outside inputs and reducing the amount of cash that's going out of your home and increasing the amount of cash that's coming into your home. That's ultimately the goal that you want. You want to be able to make more money than you are spending more money. And of course, the big elephant in the room that we didn't talk about too much, and that is debt. Debt is the biggest liability that any and all people probably have. Most people probably have. So if you can get rid of debt, if you do have debt, make sure it's the type of debt that you can pay off at any given time. At any given time. If something ever happens, you can be like, you know what? I'm just going to transfer money and pay that off. If it's a credit card bill, I'm just going to pay it off in a heartbeat. That's the kind of balance that you want to keep. If you're going to keep credit cards, that's the kind of balance you want to keep. If you have student loans, and believe you me, you know, we've come from a situation where we had almost $65,000 worth of debt. We're not talking about a mortgage. There was no mortgage included in this calculation. This was just our debt. We were able, through time, to pay that off, through time, dedication, and being laser focused on getting ourselves out of debt.
Yeah, there's good rules of thumb out there, good advice. So one idea that we use that worked for us is basically the debt snowball. So you look at what you owe. You really don't look at what's the highest interest rate, but you look at the highest balance. You take that, you start attacking it until it's gone.
Right.
And then just to pull a number again, let's say it's $250 a month. And now you take that, once it's gone, you take that $250 a month and attack the next thing in line.
Yeah.
The one that's the next highest balance, right? And then when that's gone, you just keep doing that and keep doing that.
Well, and what we did is we attacked whatever was the highest payment that we had. I know we followed Dave Ramsey kind of, sort of ish. We didn't agree with everything that he said. But then again, we don't agree with everything that anybody says anyway. So, it's not a big deal. But we attacked our debt by paying off the biggest dollar amount that was affecting us monthly is how we did it. So that meant for us, we had outrageous car bills. I mean, our one car, we had to get rid of that car anyway because we had kids and it wasn't big enough to suit our family. And I'm glad we did, but we got rid of that car and we were able to pay for another car. Both of our vehicles, actually, we paid cash.
Mm-hmm. So this has been in the news. The average, this is not the highest, but the average car payment for a new car right now, and we're recording this October of 2023, that payment is $750 a month.
That's ridiculous.
For a used car, around $550 a month. And
do you know that was my first house payment? When I was single, the first house I bought was $99,000, $99,500, and I had a house payment of $750 a month.
Yeah, but this is for the thing you drive. And, trucks, SUVs are popular. Cars have kind of gone by the wayside, right? But trucks, man, they're $100,000 easy.
Yeah,
and then people don't just get new tires, but they get the rims, and the rims cost more than the tires, and it goes on and on and on. And don't fall into that trap. It's not a status symbol. It's a means to get you to your job or whatever, to get groceries, right? Don't fall into that trap, because that's just one of many things. Your phone's not good enough. Now they have things where every 6 months you can get the next new phone, and, computers and everything, and they keep pushing.
Save up your
Stop.
money and buy a
Stop.
phone cash.
Stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
And don't fall into this, you need it every year.
No.
Because honestly,
you don't.
years ago when printers were a little more simple, they would, the printer would be $200. And the next year, they would discontinue it, change the power button color so they could charge $200. Really, it's what? So you're gonna buy a new printer. It never ends.
It doesn't.
It never ends. So don't fall into that trap. Buy things cash, hang on to them longer. 30, 40, 50 years ago, we didn't have cell phones. I'm going to sound old now saying this, right?
You're dating yourself,
we didn't
mister.
have the internet.
You're really dating yourself.
I had to take
He's
it.
an old guy.
I had to take it there. Well, I'm old, so I can, keep you young, right?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. No, but don't fall into all those traps. That's why the snowball, right? Because you keep rolling downhill and it just stop the bleeding. So,
Yeah.
and take a deep breath and just be happy, content with what you have.
And, honestly, as our journey has progressed, it has, we've really, how can I put this? We've really come to the realization too that sometimes you have to change who you associate with.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be around people who are going to be like, oh, did you get the latest phone? Oh, did you get, just the other day, not too long ago, we had some friends with us in our car, and and our kids, we have our vehicle seats 3 rows. It has 3 rows to it, the family vehicle, and it's an older car. It's a Ford Explorer, and or not Explorer, Expedition, excuse me, Ford Expedition, and it's older. It's paid for. And when we bought that car, we did not buy it with all the bells and whistles and everything like that. It was stripped down because we wanted to be able to pay for it cash. So fast forward a couple days ago, we had some friends of ours in our car, and the wife had made the comment. She's like, you don't have anything for the kids, like any any
drop down DVD or
any TV or DVD players for the kids. And I was like, no, I sure don't. And she's like, oh, well, all the newer vehicles have that. And I'm like, yeah, and they all have car payments.
Mm-hmm.
And she just kind of looked at me like I had something coming out of my neck, but and I know what she was going for. She was going for, well, what about the kids? Yeah, I probably could get some DVD players and put that in there and put it, as like a thing in the back of the headrest. But we're not in the car all the time with the kids. And I just, it's like I was trying to explain to her, I'm not going to go out and finance a vehicle just so that my kids can have the latest and greatest. That isn't how, for lack of a better term, that ain't how we roll. That is just, that's not feasible. So we have a car that's paid for. We will maintain that car until it breaks down and it can't start up anymore.
Yeah.
But
and do we need screens everywhere? I mean, we have
exactly
enough as it is.
Exactly.
And at the risk of sounding old again, when I grew up, I didn't have a screen in the car, and you waited till you got home. And
you guys, he's really dating himself.
But sing, I don't know, just there's
look outside the window and
look
see
outside
what you
the
see.
window. Talk to the kids about the car, the cows, the cars, the scenery, or there's other things. Bond as a family.
Yeah, exactly. Bond as a family. But, my point in bringing this up is that, sometimes you're going to run into that. Not sometimes. I guarantee you, when you're trying to live a lifestyle where your assets are worth more than your liabilities. when you have things paid off, you're going to have people look at you like you're crazy.
But you're swimming upstream when you do that. And it's not necessarily that those comments are, out of, that they're ill will. Right. But it's just, this is the treadmill that we're all told to walk on, the hamster wheel that we're told to run on. But fight that, resist that, because it's just going to keep going that direction.
Right.
Right. And, if you're used to that, if the people you associate with or whatever, that's just the norm for you or for them or whatever. And you have to fight against that. And hey, it works, right? We're married. You don't care that I have a truck that's almost 15 years old, and
not really.
I don't either.
No.
And
don't care at all.
Don't care.
No.
And I was going to say, it reminds me too, and this is not why I got a Ford F-150, an older Ford F-150, but Robert Kiyosaki is another good author, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he has some good, interesting thoughts. And I thought it was interesting that, the number one car of people that do more to put things in the asset column than the liability column, it wasn't a Mercedes-Benz, it wasn't a BMW, it wasn't a Cadillac. What was it? It was a Ford F-150.
Right.
And that kind of shocked me when I read that. And like I said, it's not the reason why I got one, but I like that Ford F-150. But point is, I wanted an older vehicle. I didn't want the car payment either for that vehicle. But anyway.
And now you want to upgrade to a Ford F-250 or 350. I can't keep up which one it is, but anyway, sorry.
Right now, we're going to keep it. So it's okay to have one, but
Yeah. We just have to save.
But, that's basically it. Just, you're going to swim upstream like a salmon and just fight it and continue to whack the debt out if you do have it, the bad debt, the stuff that doesn't help you, and you can do it.
And that's the thing too. In all of this that we have said, just keep in mind, not all debt is bad debt, but the person who owes debt is a slave to the debtor.
That's a good principle from the Bible to remember.
Exactly.
And that's helped us quite often.
Right. So, in the realm of homesteading, debt is bad. Now, if you're looking to invest in real estate or anything like that, then that's when debt may not become a bad thing, because you may be able to cash flow very well on debt. But in the realm of homesteading, you want to get yourself out of debt. That is your primary goal. Get yourself out of debt. Do what you can to own your home free and clear. But just know at the end of the day, your home will never be an asset. It's always a liability. But the things and the people that are in your home, the animals that are on your property, all of those things, if you run your homestead the correct way, they can be assets.
Make them work for you.
Exactly. Well, that's it from all of us here at our homestead. I hope that this answered some of your questions. I know I got direct messages from people on Instagram saying, please take a deeper dive. And later, after this episode has aired, we will have more details on how to run your homestead as an asset, how to, run your homestead as a business. We'll have more details on this on our website under the resource tab, and it'll be a downloadable, printable thing. So from all of us on our homestead to all of you, wherever you are in the world,
happy homesteading
and stay safe out there.